Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Kenny's Life Thoughts in Retirement. I'm just doing a little kindling cut here. My kindling box is getting a little low. So I thought well, it's not raining, and although the wind's blowing a little bit this morning, it's relatively nice. It's sunny outside. Thought I'd get out here and get some kindling cut up. I got a fire started in the house today. It was cold this morning. February, it's like the 10th of February. Still relatively no snow up here, but anything can happen. The rest of the month, you never know. But it's supposed to be dry here the next couple of days. But here in logging trucks, they start up at about 3 o'clock in the morning. I can hear them on the main road, which is a fair jaunt from here. But you can still hear them with their Jake brakes and stuff going up and down the road. They're logging up on Large Mountain Road, somewhere up high. They must be logging up there. Every now and then I can faintly hear chainsaws, but the logging trucks, they start at about 3:30 in the morning, roughly. And you can hear them. They're running like crazy going up and down the road. And Someone's logging up there. I don't know if they're logging public land or probably most likely it's private, like Weyerhaeuser or somebody. That's more than likely what they're doing. Or somebody has some private property they're logging, maybe possibly, I don't know. But I tell you, they've been running like crazy for weeks now up there. So there's a fair amount of logging going on somewhere up there. I was thinking this morning, I don't know why, but I was thinking about, it's kind of popped into my head. There was a time where, it's going on probably the early 2000s, roughly, where I was up here one weekend. It was a fall weekend. I came up here almost every weekend for several years. Anyway, and I was up here one weekend, and I was working my butts off. You know, my grandma was still alive, and her last husband was still alive, and running around like a headless chicken, like I usually do up here. And right before lunch one day, well, let me back up. So I've done a fair amount of big game hunting up here, and back in the early 2000s, I used to have trail cameras up here, and I would get pictures of all sorts of stuff. You know, the wildlife up here is pretty diverse. There's elk, there's deer, there's cougars, there's bobcats, and there's bears. There's a lot more bear up here than people realize, I think. But I started getting some pictures down where I had a tree stand out in the woods. A buddy of mine helped me put up back in the early 2000s. And I had a trail camera right around the tree stand, and I was starting to get pictures of a bear coming in pretty regularly, and I'd never harvested a bear, and I thought, well, maybe I'd like to try to focus on that bear instead of just deer hunting or whatever. And so I took all kinds of advice, and one day I was at work, and I left work early because the thought of bear hunting and this bear on my cameras, on my trail cameras, was preoccupying my brain there for a while. So I go home a little bit early that day, grab my hunting gear, and back then I started to really get into, well, first of all, bears have an incredible sense of smell. They'll wind you, and they don't like humans. They don't like the smell of humans, and for the most part, they will try to avoid you at all costs because they know you're dangerous. Unless you corner a bear like a sow and her cub, you're probably not going to have, or it's really, really hungry and they're starving or something, which he wouldn't be up here. There's plenty of food for them up here, but you're probably not going to have a run-in with a bear. It's pretty unlikely. Anyway, so their incredible sense of smell makes it pretty unlikely you're going to get pretty close to a bear. And I've seen plenty of bears up here, but very rarely do I see them, and they're very close. Anyway, I decided I want to try my hand at trying to get one of these bears, and I took all kinds of advice. There's a fishing lure that smells like licorice, and so again, the bear's sense of smell, they are basically a big pig, and all they want to do is eat, and their smell is incredible, like I said. So I put this fishing lure stuff that smells like licorice all over my boots. So I'm trying to cover my scent trail as I'm going into the where my tree stand is. And every time I'd walk in and out, I had this. I smelled like a big licorice piece of candy. Uh, anyway, I had it spread all over my boots, and then I also did to help hide my scent. Every now and then, I would do what's called a honey burn, and so I would take a little Bunsen burner and a pan and fill the pan with oil and turn it up on high. And I don't know if you ever seen honey when it burns, but it's really a white smoke and it permeates the area in honey smell. So I'm doing everything possible without, you're not supposed to attract them with feed, of course. You can't put food out and donuts and all kinds of stuff like that. That's against the law. But anyway, at the time, I was burning honey, and every now and then, not every day, but every now and then. And of course, and then I would spray my clothes in this anti-scent material, doing everything possible. So, like I said, I was getting this picture of a pretty nice bear on my trail cameras, and left work that early, did my routine, and I'm walking down the old logging road over here, not far from here. And I just bend the corner, walk up into the timber where my tree stand is, and the wind was perfect that day. Like I said, their sense of smell is incredible. The wind was coming out of the northeast, was coming this way at me, and I was down here, so this bear had no idea I was in there. But it was going from my right to my left as I walked in there, and it walked right underneath my tree stand, and I harvested this bear, and I was so excited, um, absolutely, uh, really, really excited, up until the point where I had the meat all processed at a local butcher, and I got the meat back, and no matter what I did, I didn't like the taste of it. I just was like, oh my God, this. And I'm a firm believer of, if you're going to harvest an animal, you better eat it, because that's really the name of the game here. It's not about, for me, it's not about trophies or anything like that. Um, so, my intent was to eat this bear, and I did not like the taste of it, and neither did my wife, and neither did my family. But my grandmother up here loved the taste of bear. And I don't know if it was the way I was cooking it. Even when she would cook it, I didn't really enjoy it that much. So after that, I said, you know what, I never ever want to harvest another bear, because I didn't like the taste of it. And so I went on, never thought much about it again. But I did say to myself, well, I suppose if I ever had to kill another bear, it would have to be a I have to situation. And um, a few years passed, and I'm up here working. It's a Saturday. It's deer hunting season, but I'm working my butt off up here. And right before lunch, I said, "Hey, Grandma, I'm going to go up and check my trail cameras, and I'll be back in a half an hour." And so I grabbed my rifle, because it's deer season, just in case. And anyway, I'm walking in where my tree stand is, and where my camera is, because I'm going to check on my camera, grab the card out of it and replace it with another card, and come back and have some lunch and finish up my day. Well, I am walking in there, and all of a sudden I hear this rustling going on, ruckus going on up in a tree. And well, first of all, that first bear I killed was, I want to say, 25 yards away, so I was really, really close to it. And this bear that I have an encounter with, and again, I don't want to kill another bear ever in my life. I don't care that I don't want to. I don't like the taste of them. It just wasn't that good. And so I'm walking in to check my camera on that Saturday, and I look up, and I'm again about 20 yards away, is all roughly at the most, and out of a tree comes this bear. Just picture a fireman coming down a fireman's pole. It was making all kinds of racket with its claws, coming, shimmying its way down, and then it stops about, I don't know, 20 feet up in the air, and it stops and it's looking down at me, and it starts clanking its jaws, rattling its teeth at me, and kind of sort of a growl, and it was a weird kind of a sound, but it was like that at me. I'm like, oh my God. And I have my rifle on me, and I don't give it a second shot or a second chance or a second thought. And I harvest that bear because I was that close. It had my attention, and I decided to take that bear because it was pretty aggressive, which is the first time I'd ever been around any bear like that. I've seen bears off in the distance, and they're not typically aggressive because they're eating. That's all they're doing, is eating or running away from you. But this one was close enough, and I harvested the bear. It was a 12-year-old female sow. Come to find out, because you have to, turn it into the fishing game, their incisor tooth and stuff, and they can age it with that tooth and all that. Anyway, my grandma's now, she's back at the house here, and she's cooked lunch because I told her I wasn't going to be gone very long. And it was about 2.5 hours later, I show up. And she goes, where have you been? And I go, well, I shot a bear. And she goes, oh, well, good. Make sure you get that meat process right away. Get it processed. And I go, oh, I will. And you're going to get it all because I don't want any of it. And so she was happy, just tickled pink with it, because again, she liked the taste of it, and fed her crony buddies, and they all liked it and stuff. And for me, it wasn't for me. And I've seen lots of bears up here. They're usually about average size. They're not like overly huge. They're a black bear. They're not like a grizzly or anything, but they still can be, they're apex predators as far as I'm concerned. You don't really want to corner one of them, I don't think. But that one coming out of that tree at me had my attention. And I don't know why I thought of it, because that was a long time ago. But anyway, it was, every now and then I'll see bears on that hillside over there, usually in the spring and in the fall. It's rare I see them in the summer. I think they're really, really nocturnal in the summertime. And we had a bear right here. I didn't see it, but I saw its sign here, right here in the orchard, which is pretty close for comfort. And when my grandma had bees up here, she had several bears coming into the bees. The old garden shed was down over here, and the bears would come in and, raid her honeybees. And the honeybees that we have down below, the folks that are the beekeepers, put an electric fence around all of there's 144 hives that they brought in last spring down there, down by the old barn. And they put up an electric fence because I told them, either you do that or you're going to have bear problems up here, and it's going to be too close to the house for bear, too close for comfort as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, they put a really nice electric fence around it, so it keeps the bears it deters them from getting into the honeybee hives. But yeah, there's several bears up here. There's more than most people think. Kathleen and I have run into bears just taking a walk. About a year ago, we had one. Well, on that same logging road down here, we were just taking a long walk and came down. We said, well, let's just go through the forest there on the logging road and come around the house. And I go, well, there's a bear right there. She looks up, and there's a bear, and it's running away from us. Again, the scent of us, they don't like people. We had our dog with us, so I'm sure it didn't like any of that, and it ran off. But I don't usually carry a firearm. Sometimes I will, but I don't like carrying firearms around. But I have a bear spray, pepper spray. For both Kathleen and I, we both have them, and they're meant to ward off any close encounter you might potentially have with a bear. And thankfully, I've never had to deploy those things. I don't really want to get too close to one. Like I said, I don't think they don't like humans, so they stay away from you for the most part. But anyway, I just thought of that story, and I thought I'd share it this morning. I need to bring some more wood onto the porch. It's been about 4 weeks or so. Like I said, we don't burn that often. I got a fire in there today because it was cold enough this morning outside, and it helps to warm up that area in there. But I need to bring in some wood and stack it up on the porch again. And but the wind's blowing a little bit, which I don't like wind. It's not really blowing that hard, but it's blowing from the north and northeast, which means it's cold, and it's a little bit nippy out here. Anyway, I appreciate you taking the time today. I just thought I'd tell my quick little story, and hope you enjoy it. Again, I don't ever want to kill another bear as long as I live. I don't care to, unless I absolutely had to. And I felt like that encounter it had my attention. It really, I'm just thankful I had a gun on me, because this bear was really upset. I didn't see, it was a sow, and I didn't see any other bears, because you're not supposed to kill bears if there's a sow and a cub with them. You're not supposed to shoot those, and I didn't see a cub with it, so I don't know why it was so. I just think I surprised it. I walked up on it, and got real close to it, and it didn't like it, and it was kind of in a vulnerable spot in that tree. And anyway, well, that's my story. Enjoy the rest of your day today. Thank you again. Be safe and be well. And as always, if I can find my little clicker here, make good choices. Enjoy the day.